Hi, it's Pavel with a C++ exercise. This is from the book Starting Out with C++ from Control Structures Through Objects, Chapter 7, Exercise 1. The assignment says to write a program that lets the user enter 10 values into an array, and the program should then display the largest and smallest values stored in the array. Just one array. So that's a fairly simple assignment, very short. So all right, let's get to do some coding, I guess. So first we need to declare an array, since we are going to be entering all the numbers into the array. So it's gonna be I'll choose integers. I'll call it numbers, and we are going to have 10 numbers entered. Now we need to find the smallest and the largest number, so we will need an integer for smallest. I'll initialize it to 0, and integer largest, and again I'll initialize it to 0. And then we need one number. It's gonna be like a temporary number. That's the one that we will be kind of comparing against. So I'll just call it, and it's gonna be an integer. I'll call it temp. And again, just initialize it to 0. So we have, I think, all the variables in place. Now we can start entering the numbers. Since we are entering 10 numbers, the best way to do it is, of course, a loop. So I'll do a for loop, integer I equals 0, the standard stuff, and I plus plus. And in it we'll do a cout and something like please enter number, and we can actually do something like this, I plus 1. Basically it will say please enter number 1, then please enter number 2. Remember, we're starting from 0, that's why plus 1. And what that's the end of the quotation, and do something like a semicolon or something. It's just for the for the display and line. So again, as it loops, it will say please enter number 1 and column, and enter number 2 column, and we will be entering numbers next to it. So our number that we are entering, which is the cin, is, again, we are entering into an array called numbers. So one element at a time, or one number at a time. So numbers, and the index is I. So at first we will populate the index 0, then index 1, 2, 3, and so forth, until this condition is no longer true. Then we will exit the loop, and we will be able to do the actual comparison. This is just for the entering the numbers into the array, and this is how you do it. Okay, so now we can start comparing, and to do it we can assume or we have to assign something to the smallest and largest, something that we can kind of compare against. And the way to do it, we will do the smallest will equal whatever was entered first. We'll simply assume that that was the smallest number. So it's gonna be the array numbers and the index 0. That's the first number that was entered into the array. And we'll do the same for the largest. So basically we have these two numbers, and now we will be comparing against them with all the other numbers from the array. So once again, let me just move this down a little. We can do another for loop. But this time we'll start from 1, because we are comparing element 0 or index 0 with the next one. So that's 1. And I is less or equal to 10. Since we are starting from 1, we add in equal here, and I plus plus. Okay, so now we're going to assign whatever the number is being looped through at the moment to our temporary number. So our temp will now equals to the number and the index of I. Again, whatever we are looping through at the moment will be assigned to temporary number. That is the number that we are going to compare against the smallest and the largest. So if our temp is less than smallest, then we have a new smallest. Then we can do smallest equals temp. And similarly, if our temp is greater than largest, then we have a new largest number, so we will assign the largest to the temp. The temp to the largest. And that's all. This is the all comparison. We are looping through all the numbers in the array and compare each number with the value that is being held in the smallest and the largest. And these values change every time we find a number that is either smaller or larger. So after the loop, we can simply output cout largest number is, and we can output the largest. That's the value held in the variable called largest. And we'll do the same for the smallest. So our smallest number is whatever is being held in our smallest variable. All right, so that's all. This is all the code. Let's build and run. What do I get here? Let me just scroll down on my error messages here. Number was not declared in this scope. Oh, that's because it's not number but numbers. So when I run it now, okay, it's asking for the number 1. So let's start with 190, and let's do the smallest one, which let's say will be 50. Then I'll do 60, 70, and let's do the largest one, which will be, let's say, 120. And again, we can do something in between 80 and 70. So again, the smallest number should be 50 and the largest should be 120. And we have it, largest number is 120, smallest number is 50. Now what happens if we have if we enter all the same numbers, let's say all 5s, then it should simply say smallest is 5, largest is 5, and it does. You can enter negative numbers as well, it makes no difference. I mean, we are accepting an integer and that could be negative. Just make sure that you understand how the negatives work, which one is actually smallest and which one is largest. So if I do minus 100, minus 60, minus 50, minus 10, let's say minus 100 again, and minus 80. Minus 10 is the largest number. I mean, it's a negative, but it's the least negative number, and negative 120 is the smallest number, so it still works even with negative numbers. So to recap, we're declaring an array of 10 elements because we are accepting 10 numbers, and variables largest and smallest, and a temp which we will be using to hold current value that we are searching through. In our first for loop, we will simply ask the user to enter a number, and we will add that number into our array. Then we will assign the smallest and the largest to the first element in the array. That's the first number that was entered, and that's gonna be our kind of like a base. We enter another for loop, this time starting from 1, simply because that's the next element. Again, remember, we smallest and largest is the element 0, so we compare it to the next one. So we assign that number, the current number, which is element 1 in this case, to our temporary number, and then we will do the comparison. Is this number less than smallest, which is the index 0? Yes or no? And the same with the largest. Is it greater than the largest? And if any of this is true, then our smallest is overridden with a value that is being held in the temp, which is the value in the array that we are currently looping through. And then we will simply output the largest and the smallest numbers. So I hope this was helpful, and if you liked it, please like the video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.